There are plagues. We've arrived into plagues. Rivers affected, water, unusable, species of frogs going wild. We're in the beginning of the Exodus narrative of Shemot. Last week when we began, Moses was on the burning bush. The bush that was burning but not consumed, and he heard the presence of the divine telling him that he needed to go back to Mitzrayim. And right away, listening and communication comes so forward. Presence of the divine telling Moses, you have to go back to Mitzrayim, to the narrow place, and lead this movement for freedom and liberation. So go ahead and tell Pharaoh, okay, let my people go. Right away, Moses is like, no. It is not clear communication. You tell me to do it, I'm going to do it. Since ancient times, we don't seem to work that way. It's a good quality. Well, it starts ancient. Go ahead, Moses, go. No, it's not me. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's a good idea. Yes, it is you. No, I don't think it's me. Yes, it is you, Moses. I mean, who else could it be? If you think about it, everything about Moses is right for this moment, right? Grew up in two households as an adopted kid, right? He has it's open adoption. He knows both of his households. Speaks the language. He could walk in. They know him. He knows both groups of people. He's exactly the right person. No, I don't. It's not me. People aren't going to listen to me. And it's because of my speech impediment. They're not going to listen to me. I'm not the right person. Yes, it is you. And finally, he's convinced when he's told he doesn't have to do it alone, that his brother Aaron will go with him. So, okay, he goes to Pharaoh. Let my people go. Big surprise. Pharaoh says no. And in fact, Pharaoh makes it harder on the people after that first interaction, which makes sense, right? That's usually how movements happen, right? It's not like, hey, we're going to change something in a big way. So, okay, great. Let's just change it all right now. Things take sometimes a very long time of persistence and hope. But right away, all right, you know what? You asked for the people to go. Actually, I'm going to make it harder than people. Now, you know how I used to give straw to make the bricks? Now they still have to make the bricks, but no straw. And the people are like, Moses, what are you doing? So not only is Pharaoh like, no, you can't do it. Now the people are like, no, this is ridiculous. Why are you doing this? You're making our life harder. Please stop. Moses goes back to God and says, I told you that this was not going to work out. And you know why it is? It's my speech impediment. Of course, there's a lot of other reasons why Pharaoh wouldn't want the people to go. Doesn't want to lose power, doesn't want to lose the slaves, doesn't want to encourage other movements against him. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. Probably not this one. So God says, go back. Okay, try again with Pharaoh again. And that's where we are in this part of our Torah narrative. Go back. Try again with Pharaoh, and this time I'm going to bring something big to help him listen to you. Okay? God says to Moses, say to Aaron, take your rod and hold out your arm over the waters of Egypt, the rivers, the canals, its ponds, all of its bodies of water, that they may turn to dung, to blood, that there shall be blood throughout the land of Egypt. And so Moses and Aaron did just as God commanded. Aaron, mind you, it's Aaron lifting up the rod. And then there's, of course, stories about why is it Aaron? Because remember, Moses was placed in the Nile and protected by the river as a baby. And so our Midrash says that Moses couldn't bring himself to do anything to be hurtful to the river. So it's Aaron who holds out his hands. All the water in the Nile turns to blood and the fish die. and the Nile stank, and the people couldn't drink the water from the Nile, and there was blood throughout the land. And it didn't work. 7 days later, okay, let's try again to get the listening that we're looking for here, the understanding. So another plague, hold out your arm over the waters, and this time frogs. The Nile swarms with frogs, and they come, they're told they're going to come up and enter your palace, your bedchamber, your bed, the house of your courtiers, your people, your ovens, even your kneading bowls. Frogs are going to be everywhere. Now you'll hear me. Right? No. Still not hearing it. Because we're told that as soon as there was relief, Pharaoh became stubborn. As soon as there was relief, Hachabed et libo, from kavod, his heart was heavy, hard, dulled, and he would not heed. And again it happens. That's interesting. That's not relevant. Things happening in our world and with species, with our waters, with our rivers, and crazy storms. The crazy names they're coming up with these storms too, right? And we go, oh, okay, thank God that's over. As soon as there's relief, we move out of an understanding of the steps we have to take for what's happening and that we need to do to heal this earth. Our hearts dull. We get a reminder, and then when there's relief, our hearts heavy, hard. Sfas Emet tells us in this Parsha, he's a Hasidic master teacher, Moses is struggling to be heard. Moses is struggling to be heard. That's what all of this is about, Sfas Emet says. Moses trying to be heard. It's not about his speech impediment. It's about not being listened to. The witness makes the prophet. The witness makes the prophet. Hear my people and I will speak, we're told later in Devarim. The witness makes the prophet. You're not being heard. You're not the prophet. And in our own lives, are we listening? And just to be clear, listening doesn't just happen in our ears, right? I'm aware of the ear language of listening. Many of you know that I have folks in my family who are deaf, and here is this way, but for deaf people, it's this way. And I was thinking earlier today about like hearing with our eyes, just like I want to say like this. This is what I'm talking about. Like just listening with every part of our bodies, our whole selves. Are we listening to our loved ones, to ourselves, to the divine in us, around us, communicating? Okay, so how do we do that, Rabbi? So the Sfas Emes has a teaching on just this, on listening. And what does he say? He says we have to empty out. We have to empty out, Koldavar, from everything. Empty, free, available. From our assumptions, from our constant flow of a story about ourselves that may or may not be true. Like Moses, stuck on that story about how it's my speech impediment that's the problem. Keeps coming back to that over and over and over again. And of the many, many reasons why Pharaoh would not let them go, the first one is not that. And yet this is the story he's told himself about himself since he was little. This would only go better if I was smooth of speech. No, that's not factual. That's not based on fact. That's no. Pharaoh, this is going to be hard. It's not about something that you have always told yourself is the reason for this not happening. The story we tell ourselves about ourselves, that is one place we can empty out. Our formative narratives that have such power in us. And sometimes they're true, okay. And sometimes they are not true. Often they are not true. They take great power inside of us. Dr. Susan David talks to them like a hook, like a song hook. People in my family have that song hook. We get those earworms. Can't get that line out of your head, that song, you got to hear that song, right? And the hook of that is always going in us, always going in us, always going in us. It's our way that we make sense of the world around us, and usually that came in pretty young. And we don't always check it in reality. So that's part of emptying out. The Sfas Emes tells us empty out. How do we do that? We start to get that narrative outside of our own mind and heart and say it out loud to somebody. This is what I think is happening. How does that sound? Oh, wait, I still think this is why it's happening. How does that sound again? Hey, I think this is the reason again why this is happening. Write them down. Write it down. This is the story I tell myself about myself. What I can and I cannot do in my life, in your relationships, in your work. I was thinking too about some of the stories about how we're not capable, but other stories about how we are capable of everything also need to be gotten out loud. I could take on all of this, right? But you need your beloveds to say like, no, you can't. It's too much. I can't do that because of this thing. I can do that. I have to do that. I never. And also watch those if-thens. If I do that, then this will obviously happen. If I do that, then this will happen. Right? That's why we need a witness. A witness makes a prophet. I say, does that make sense? Maybe a witness says, no, it does not. So let's put in another story. Let me help you to form a new story. So that's one way we can empty. Get out the stories. And the Sfas Emes tells us that the Torah was given in one long, continuous voice. Kol Gadol, in one huge voice without end. And he says it has never stopped. The voice of Torah has never stopped. And right now, we can listen to it. So we empty out in order to listen. And a beautiful offering here is that he gives a practice. How do we do that? He says the Shema. Every day we say the Shema, and every day is an opportunity to empty out and listen. Shema asks us to listen and says that all things are one. The Sfas Emes suggests that daily we have an opportunity to chant the Shema and to empty out, and then listen into the silence, into the oneness. And does this take time? Yes, it does. This takes time, its own time, often a long time, a different kind of time. It's not usually a fast, quick revelation. If you've had one of those, amen, hallelujah. You know, I sat down to meditate once and then I got my entire life plan. Everything is just unfolding. Okay. Sometimes I go, And a lot of people, when they come and say, I want to become more spiritual, I want to get clear, I want to learn how to listen, I want to open up. Okay, great. So let's start practicing every day how to do that listening. So many ways to empty and listen. Just pick one and try it for a while. It's not a quick revelation, but it's no revelation at all if you're not trying to practice the listening. I met with a guy this week, Sam Heath, a man, who is an organizer with Equal Justice USA. And he was talking to me because he has this evangelical network, which is a beautiful idea that he is organizing evangelical Christians around issues of death penalty and policing. The Equal Justice USA works to transform justice system by promoting responses to violence that break the cycle of trauma at the intersection of criminal justice, public health, and racial justice to lift up healing over retribution. So, he's talking in my pitch, he was talking his pitch about evangelical, but also interfaith work. So we were talking, and then I was like, so tell me, how are you doing this work, Sam? How did you come to this work? And then he stepped back and said, actually, it was a 20-year process of listening. I was like, wow. He's like, yeah, I was a school teacher for high school history. And I started being open to things that I had not been aware of, that I had never been taught. And I started to see things about race in the United States that I never knew. And then he had a friend who was incarcerated and then spent time visiting this friend over many years, again, opening his eyes in a way that he had never seen. And then he lives in Charlottesville. And he was present in 2017. When a coalition of white nationalists and alt-right came together to try to stop the tearing down of Robert E. Lee sculpture, one of the many, many continuing honors of the Confederacy, those who fought to continue murderous chattel slavery in the American South. And as they marched, right, to protect this racist general, the crowd had chanted, "Jews will not replace us." And he shared a piece with me that he wrote where he said that August 11th and 12th did something to the moral imagination of those who live in Charlottesville who were on the streets that day. Because that weekend, because of that weekend, I want to learn differently. I want to learn different things so I can love in different ways. I want to learn different things so I can love in different ways. And so a year ago, he started to work for equal justice and to organize this evangelical network after a 20-year period of listening and discovery. Empty and open, empty and listening. May each of us empty and open, empty and listen, and then follow what we hear. Shabbat Shalom.